I had been looking forward to this weekend getaway for months. My friends and I had booked a charming old house on the outskirts of town through Airbnb. The listing boasted beautiful antique furniture, a picturesque garden, and a tranquil setting perfect for unwinding. We couldn't wait to escape our hectic city lives and enjoy some peace and quiet. We arrived late on a Friday evening. The house stood at the end of a long, winding road surrounded by dense woods. As we pulled up, the headlights of our car illuminated the weathered exterior of the house, giving it an eerie glow. It looked even older and more imposing than it had in the pictures, but we brushed off our initial unease. The key was in a lockbox by the door, just as the host had promised. We entered the house, and a musty smell greeted us. The interior was filled with antique furniture, creaky wooden floors, and dim lighting. It had a certain charm, but it also felt like stepping back in time. After settling in, we decided to explore the house. There were 4 bedrooms, each with a different theme. Mine was the Victorian room, complete with a canopy bed and heavy velvet drapes. As I unpacked my things, I noticed an old, ornate mirror on the wall. Its glass was cloudy, and it gave me an unsettling feeling, but I tried to ignore it. We gathered in the living room to relax and catch up. As the night wore on, we heard strange noises, creaks, and groans from the old house settling, or so we thought. At one point, the lights flickered, but we laughed it off, blaming the faulty wiring. Later that night, we decided to explore the garden. It was overgrown and wild, with ivy climbing the walls and ancient statues peeking out from the underbrush. There was a dilapidated gazebo in the center, which looked like it hadn't been used in decades. As we wandered, we stumbled upon a small, old cemetery. The tombstones were weathered and covered in moss, their inscriptions barely readable. A chill ran down my spine as I read one of the dates, 1873. We quickly decided to head back inside. Back in the house, we decided to play some board games to lighten the mood. As we played, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, but every time I turned to look, there was nothing there. That night I had trouble sleeping. The house was filled with strange noises, footsteps in the hallway, whispers just beyond the edge of hearing, and the creak of floorboards under invisible weight. At one point I thought I saw a shadow move across the room, but I convinced myself it was just my imagination. The next morning, we all shared our strange experiences. One of my friends, Mark, mentioned he had woken up in the middle of the night to find his door wide open, even though he was sure he had closed it before going to bed. Another friend, Emily, said she had felt a cold hand brush against her arm while she was sleeping. Despite our unease, we decided to make the best of our trip. We spent the day hiking in the nearby woods and exploring the local area. By the time we returned to the house, it was already getting dark. As we approached, I noticed something odd. One of the upstairs windows was open, even though we had closed all of them before leaving. That night, things took a turn for the worse. We were sitting in the living room, talking and laughing, when suddenly the temperature dropped. Our breath came out in puffs of mist, and the lights flickered before going out completely. We fumbled for our phones to use as flashlights, and that's when we heard it, a low, mournful wail echoing through the house. We huddled together, trying to figure out what to do. The wailing grew louder, and then we heard footsteps coming down the stairs. I shone my flashlight towards the staircase, and for a brief moment I saw a figure, a woman in a tattered dress, her face hidden by shadows. She disappeared as quickly as she had appeared, but the wailing continued. Panicking, we decided to leave the house. We grabbed our essentials and rushed to the car. As we sped away, I glanced back and saw the figure standing in the window, watching us leave. We drove to the nearest hotel and spent the night there. The next morning, we contacted the Airbnb host to explain what had happened. He seemed genuinely surprised and concerned, but mentioned that previous guests had also reported strange occurrences. When we returned home, we did some research on the house and discovered its dark history. It had belonged to a family in the late 1800s, and the mother had gone mad after the tragic deaths of her children. She was rumored to haunt the house, mourning her lost family. We left a detailed review on Airbnb, warning future guests about our experiences. The host reached out to us, thanking us for the information and promising to investigate further. Despite his reassurances, I knew I would never return to that house. Even now, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I can hear the faint sound of wailing in the distance. Have you ever stayed somewhere that gave you chills? Share your creepiest travel experience in the comments below.